So to start off, the first bit that I want to talk about is the tone of the entire Game Awards. So it's not nearly as bad as it was in the past, but they are making progress. But I think it's clear, and it's undoubtedly clear, that the inner kind of bias throughout the entire award show against Nintendo is still present. It's not in anything they overtly did or announced or for any games that won, but you can just tell with announcements, with how they treat Nintendo when they're either going to stage, or with what awards they're actually going to announce on stage, or with when Jeff is talking to Reggie. You can tell that there is some sort of pushback with that. It's not a whole encompassing of the entire thing. It's just you can tell that it's still there, and that's one criticism I have. But it does seem like they are progressing and trying to be inclusive of everybody and not just pull their favorites and only go with that, and not, it just shows that there's still ignorance included throughout. Throughout some of the other topics here, you'll see kind of what I'm talking about. But for the one example here, look at how Jeff Keighley is. So when Reggie is out there and he's announcing Bayonetta 1 and 2, and then he shows Bayonetta 3, right after the Bayonetta 3 trailer, there's not even like some sort of acknowledgement from Jeff Keighley, whereas in all the other games he says, wow, that looks amazing, or oh wow, that's so exciting, can't wait to play that, blah blah blah. For Bayonetta 3, he goes straight, like literally, like the trailer's like music is basically still playing, and he's like, okay, on to the next thing, boom. It's a minor thing, it's not something it's too crazy, but it's there, and it's something that needs to be kind of called out, and you can kind of see how it is there. But you can just tell that a lot of the industry are still kind of against Nintendo, and this will be in another rant, mainly about IGN and some of the other sites later on in another episode. But that's one concern that I have here. And the other thing is the categories that they chose. So this isn't like a major thing, but some of the categories, like, come on, people, like, you see some of the categories that they have here. So like best Chinese game, I get that they're trying to include that market, but why the fuck does that have to actually be there? Best debut indie game, they already had best indie game, right? Best independent game. Why the fuck do they need a debut indie game? I don't know. Best esports team, okay. The Game Awards, if you want them to be like an Oscars for the video game industry, it should be about what the games are, their content, stuff like that. It shouldn't be about the fucking community around it. It should be what is the best game, best art, best music, best certain genre. It shouldn't be about fucking esports players. It shouldn't be about trending gamers. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, if you want this to be a reputable fucking award show, it shouldn't have bullshit categories like that, and then you're excluding ones like best platformer. How the fuck is best platformer not included in the Game Awards? I think this is why the whole snub of Super Mario Odyssey is annoying to me, because they'll have categories like best action game and best action adventure game, or they'll have best student game for everybody that doesn't understand what the fuck. I get why you want student game, you're calling attention to other games out there, but literally no one else has played these games, and you're doing a best student game thing, but you don't have fucking best platformer. Most anticipated game, it should be about the games that are already here. It doesn't, you're talking about stuff outside of what the games are, and it's getting away from the games, you're getting into more of the commentary of games, and that shouldn't be what the Game Awards is about. I don't know, that was just really annoying. There's no puzzle, there's no best puzzle game or anything like that. They have a fucking just the best family game, but they don't have fucking best platformer. I don't know. That just really kind of grinded my gears a little bit there. There could be a best rhythm game or something. It should be about the games, the substance of the games, not the fucking shit going on around it. Another issue I had with it is how they announced the category winners. So again, this kind of calls back to about the whole kind of general kind of industry bias against Nintendo here. It's when they announced some of the categories, you guys obviously saw when there's another presenter walking out onto the stage. During that time, they'd have the girl over the back, just announcing, saying, hey, so the best strategy game was Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and the best family game was Super Mario Odyssey. Why aren't they getting some of the attention? Like, I get that the show was already running long enough already, But when you're taking away so many of these things, and a lot of them just so happen to be Nintendo ones that Nintendo won, quite a few of them, best handheld game, best family game, best strategy game, best, it makes everything blatantly clear that you're avoiding those. And I think they need to figure out a better way to actually give everybody the attention they deserve there. Maybe do a gauntlet of award winners or something like that, or do 2 or 3 in the matter of 5 minutes or something, or do those and not have them, or shorten the amount of speeches they could do, or I don't know. It just, when they hide away the categories that actually are somewhat important, that's fine. I know they hid away the best, some of these other ones that were really kind of shitty categories, but then they have like a full segment talking to, who was it, Faker, like the best esports player. No one gives a fuck. It's about the games, not about the people playing them. It's the game awards. I don't know. It just grinded my gears with that. And again, it just so happens a lot of the winners there that they don't have come on stage are fucking games for Nintendo systems. I don't know. Again, you see these things here, and again, maybe it's not a blatant thing here, but something's up there. Another thing that I want to talk about with that is the advertisements. So throughout the whole Game Awards, I don't know what the percentage of the time was, but throughout like almost after every bit, they'd have a self-made advertisement. I get they need to make money, but when it's for games that are involved in the Game Awards, it makes the whole show seem a little more less illegitimate. When you have, I don't know, it's something about just doing these game advertisements throughout, like, I know Rocket League wasn't up for anything like that throughout the Game Awards, but seeing 3 different, commercials for Rocket League was a little bit weird, and seeing any sort of announcements for games or any commercials for games in the awards that actually have that game up for the running, it just didn't seem right to me. And I don't know, it was also a ton of these different commercials. I liked that they were, game centric, and they didn't have to go to commercial and see, someone fucking using toilet paper or something, or brushing their teeth and trying to sell you that. But I don't know, it just didn't seem to go as well for me, and some of the flow was kind of ruined. They had that whole eBay deal. That was just so fucking weird. I don't know, that just didn't make sense to me, and it extended the whole show longer than it should have been. Again, I get that they need to make money off of it, but I'm hoping they can find a better way for the next show. I don't know. And kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about here was just the representation of the Japanese games industry throughout the entire show. This is both a good and kind of a critical thing I have to say about this here. So I love to see that a lot of the Japanese games are getting recognition finally in these Game Awards, because let's be honest, in my opinion, more often than not, Japanese companies are making better games. Again, that's completely entirely subjective, but how I see it is that they're actually creating stuff that is new and fresh. Sure, they might have, for example, JRPGs that keep a similar mechanic system, but they're creating new gorgeous worlds, new kind of narratives, new kind of things like that a lot of the time in some game, again, I don't want to say most or anything like that, but a lot of the Western games aren't doing something like that. You'll see new kind of things brought in with like The Last of Us and stuff. You'll see new kind of, things like that Hellblade and stuff like that. But more often than not, you're going to get all those military shooters or sci-fi shooters that just kind of go with status quo and just kind of go into this multiplayer realm of the EA's play game as a service thing, Whereas games from Japanese developers, at least here, Persona 5, getting all that, getting all the recognition, I fucking love seeing that. I love to see that that's there. I love to see that Nintendo won a Game of the Year, a Japanese company. I like to see that Nier is in a lot of them, Persona 5, Odyssey, Zelda, all these Japanese type games, Monster Hunter World as, in anticipated games, stuff like that. I like to see that Japanese games are getting somewhat more represented here than they ever were in past years. It shows that there is clearly a big bias against those games. But I think because, and again, this is both a positive and a negative how I see it, because it's PlayStation 4 showing these with these games on, as exclusives to that system. That is why they are getting some more mainstream appeal here. Try to tell me if if Persona 5 was a Nintendo Switch exclusive game, do you honestly think it would be getting nearly as much buzz from the rest of the industry as it is because it was a PS4 game? Seriously, if you honestly think that's how it is, because I don't know what it is with this is maybe a little tangent, but I don't know what it is with Persona games getting some more attention from the wider industry of gaming, whereas Shin Megami Tensei Apocalypse, for example, on 3DS, half the industry probably never even brought that game up ever. Half that industry probably, when the Nintendo Switch had their presentation and they announced Shin Megami Tensei coming to Switch, people probably just looked away. You know what I mean? Whereas imagine if they just put a Persona thing on it and said it was on PS4, people would be flocking to it. And again, this is just one of those things where it's like, I'm so happy to see the Japanese games are getting kind of an extension now. They're going out into the wider, I guess, mainstream Western market, like the gaming industry with the gaming sites and all that kind of stuff. But it's just funny that it's happening now when Nintendo has been championing these type of games for the last decade, and they weren't getting the recognition they 100% deserved. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I guess it came out too late for it to be in the awards, but because it came out in December, I can already imagine that won't even get a single recognition next year's show. If it was a PS4 exclusive, though, I think that'd be a totally different story here. Again, maybe some conspiracy theory, maybe I'm completely fucking wrong and ignorant, but no, I think I'm catching on to something here, and again, I'm really happy to see that it's doing that. Japanese games are kind of going in there, and then people are actually playing it. They're getting a little more mainstream. But again, if it was a Nintendo Atlas game, fuck no, they would never acknowledge that shit. Just won't happen.